There are some differences between face-to-face and online courses. However, a lot of the differences can also be within either one of those structures, depending on what the content is, sort of what the teacher's style is, and then also the learner's style. So there's not just one right answer for either environment. So you really do have to know yourself as a student or as a teacher to know if you're going to be successful in an online environment. As a teacher, if you've developed a course and you've put specific due dates and you sort of have a time frame, you make sure you communicate that to students, because sometimes students may think, well, I'm taking this online course, I've got 9 weeks, I can do it however I want. But no, you've set it up where specifically you want things to occur in each week. As a student, the same thing. If you enter an online course thinking, well, I'll just check, at the end of the month and see what I'm supposed to do, and all of a sudden you find out you've missed 3 discussions and you were supposed to already submit an assignment, that's not really going to work for you. So from the beginning, it's got to be clear sort of the time frame that it's going to take from week to week or month to month or semester, and what the expectations are on both sides for participation. Are you going to need to be doing regular discussions, or are you going to be having to turn in certain assignments at certain times, or is it more open-ended? Has it been designed so that you can sort of self-pace and just complete the materials as you like? So again, it needs to be clear, I think, from the student and the teacher's perspective about pace. If you're not a good self-starter, you can have trouble in an online course, because if you don't have self-regulation and the ability to remind yourself, oh, I need to go log into my online class, it's easy to then sort of forget that you're even in an online class and then not meet the expectations. And I've even had some students actually fail courses because they totally forgot they were in the class. Now, from the teacher's side, it's important that you do try to send out communiques and reminders to students. You're in this class, I haven't heard from you, whether you do that via email or text messaging or whatever ways that you have to communicate with students, to also help them realize they're in the class and what the pace of the class is. If you don't always have access to the internet or a computer, being in an online class can be a challenge for you. So as a student, you would have to really look at your schedule and figure out when you're going to spend the time. If it's going to take you so many hours a week to be involved in the online class because you do need to do things with others or be in a discussion or read what others have posted or upload assignments, those all take connections. There are assignments and things that you do separate from being on an internet connection that you might even be able to do in an analog way. Sometimes you can write or create things that then are scanned and submitted, or at least if they're offline, you could still be on a word processor or some other application to be doing the work of the class, or even doing the course reading. Sometimes you might have an actual physical paper book, or if you have online materials to read, sometimes you can print those off. So you don't always have to be reliant on an internet connection constantly. That said, obviously, if you're in an online environment, you do have to have that connectivity at some point, and enough to make it easy and accessible for you to do your work. You really can't say if an online class is easier than a face-to-face class, both from the teacher perspective and the student perspective, because again, a lot of it depends on what the actual content is, how the course is designed, what the expectations are. However, I feel like many students do kind of have in the back of their mind, oh, this is going to be easy because it's going to be more self-paced and I can kind of just do it as I want. So it is important to look, whenever you're in an online class, at what the learning outcomes are, what the expectations are for assignments, what the timetable is, and look at the rest of your life and really be realistic about, can I dedicate the time and the energy necessary to be successful in this class? Because the ultimate goal is to learn something. And if you haven't been able to contribute enough to the course to learn the expected learning outcomes, then it's really been a waste of your time and your resources.
Okay, first of all, in terms of pacing, for me as a professor, when I teach online, my courses are highly modular. So they're weekly units, there's a set amount of reading, a set amount of assignments, and set due dates. So every week the due date is the same exact date, same exact day, same exact time. So actually for me, in an online setting, platform, pacing is actually relatively easy. I shouldn't say easy, but it's important. It's really important. I think that having a regular schedule for students so that they can actually regulate what it is they're doing is extremely important. So I really work hard at making sure that there is very uniform pacing throughout the course. Now, when it comes to computer access, it's an online course. So it is something that requires you to have a computer, and if not your own computer, that requires you to have ready access to the internet. So if you don't have a computer at home, or you don't have some sort of device that allows you to use the technology, then you really do need to have access to your library, for example, your public library, or computer labs at the university, so you need to have access to Bowling Green or Firelands or something like that. But I think that if you don't have reliable internet access and you don't know that you're gonna be able to get to a computer every day during the time when you know that you can work, I think it's gonna be a challenge for you to succeed on a distance/online platform. So I think that's really important for students to know. At this point, most people have the technology, but not everyone does yet. So I think it's important that people are cognizant that they need the technology, or they really are going to have a difficult time. Also, is it easier in online or in person? It depends on the person and their temperament. Some people actually fare much better in the classroom when there is a physical group of peers around them that they can actually build on and work off of when they're in the classroom setting. Some students really need to have a professor who can stare them down and say, you need to do this now, and this is what to do for the next class, and you have to have it in class. Some people really need that. An online setting is much better for students, particularly when we're talking about younger students who are more mature than their years, because it requires a tremendous amount of discipline. It requires the ability to set a routine for yourself in terms of your schedule and then hold to that routine. So, in my classes, when I teach online, deadlines always are Monday at noon. And the next assignments are released Monday at noon. So you have a whole week to do it. And it's that way every week. So it's really important that students develop some sort of a weekly routine so they know, okay, I'm going to work on it at this particular block of time, I'm going to put it away. I'm going to work for another particular block of time, I'm going to put it away, and another particular block of time and put it away, however they do it, so that by the time the next deadline gets here, I have everything turned in.
The pros that I really enjoyed are that some online classes are self-paced. You can do them on your own time. And that really helped me a lot, because sometimes I would get really busy, like with family stuff or just other schoolwork, and I would have to kind of put a class on the back burner. But then there were times where I had a lot of free time and I would power through everything that I'd missed before. And I always got the work done, but being able to do it on my own time made it a lot easier for me to do the work, rather than having a structured, okay, here's this, do on this day, here's this, do on this day, here's this, do now. If I were to do that, I would have rather been in the classroom, because that way it would have made it easier to make sure that I keep track going to class every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10:30 to 11:20, whatever. Some of the cons, though, are that I don't have a teacher really in front of me, where if I have a question in the middle of a lecture, I could raise my hand and be like, hey, can you explain this to me? I'd have to either email my teacher and wait for them to get back to me, or I would have to try and look up the answer on the internet or something like that. So each kind of class has its own good and bad features.
So there's a lot of pros and cons associated with online classes. Some of the pros would be the convenience. It's just you can work at the comfort of your own computer. You can do homework on your own time. You don't have to meet in any specific area. But the cons would be that you don't get that personal communication with the professor. You don't get that face-to-face conversation. You can't get your questions answered in class. So the biggest con would be the lack of immediate information, I think.
Okay.
Me personally, I think an online class is slightly easier depending on the setup. You can have a class, like I said earlier, you can have it due Friday, and everything just, if it's due on Friday, it keeps me organized, I can get everything done. If I pick up an extra shift at work, I can wait a day and get it done, or just random life events that come into play. It helps out a lot, I think, especially while working and going to college.